welcome to today's Thrive Programme podcast. Today I'm joined by Anne, all the way from Scotland. I say all the way, I'm near London, so it's quite away from me. And we're going to be talking about thriving with chronic illnesses, what it's like before, what it was like to get yourself thriving, and how life is like now for you. So do you want to start, Anne, by introducing yourself and tell us a bit about what sorts of things you've had to navigate sort of medically, physically?
Yes, of course. Yes, I am in Scotland, but I didn't have to travel far to get on here. My name's Anne, and I have various chronic conditions. And you'll probably notice me today looking at various bits of my screen because when I'm on any calls whatsoever, I put the captions on just to help me pick up on what people are saying. So that's all I'm doing if I'm looking away at some point. And my background really is that I, probably from about my 30s, I got asthma. I was given the diagnosis of asthma, and I also have fairly complicated ear, nose, throat conditions where over the years I've had various operations on my nose. I lost my smell and taste for quite a lot of years. And my ears, I've had so many infections in my ears that meant that over time I got hearing aids. And now I have what they call bone anchored hearing aids, which I can show you later if you like. And during COVID, my ear, nose, throat conditions complicated things and quite difficult to diagnose. I ended up with a lung disease called bronchiectasis. So I've got all of these conditions that I navigate through life, and I've also had many operations, including a full hysterectomy. So I've been through the menopause as well. So
And what was life like navigating all these things and the unpredictability and the unknowns and the operations and the health appointments and things? Because not that this isn't a metaphobia free podcast, but you had a metaphobia. So you were somebody that would have struggled a little bit with mental health pre. So what was it like navigating all those things with what we would call not so strong psychological foundations?
yeah, I'm glad you added in the emetophobia bit there because I didn't actually even include that in my introduction because the reason why I came to the Thrive program really was to overcome the emetophobia thing. But you'll see that it didn't even enter my head there to include that in my story. So um, in terms of navigating the conditions, I have to admit that when you were feeling like, or I was feeling like I was with asthma initially, and then I was getting these constant ear infections, your thoughts and your thinking, you do become quite worried, anxious. You don't know what's ahead. You go to all these appointments, you don't know what you're going to be told, and it can be quite an anxious time. And I know myself when I first got told that I was deaf. I was told by my consultant, who wasn't even looking at me at the time that they told me, and I had a nurse in the room with me. And I said to her afterwards, I'm sorry, but I didn't hear what the consultant actually said to me. And it was almost quite ironic that they were telling me I was deaf, but not looking at me to tell me that, so I had no idea what they were saying. So things like that, that on reflection now is quite funny when I think about it, but at the time it was quite an anxious time for me. I was quite upset by the whole thing. It didn't also help, Lucy, that when I then went back to my car, I had a parking ticket. And, and I looked at the man and just said, I've just been told I'm deaf. Could you please not give me a parking ticket? I'm not really having the best of days. And he took the parking ticket off me.
Nice, nice. But so with emetophobia, a lot of our thinking generally is fairly anxious, fairly powerless, fairly life happening to me. So in hindsight, do you feel like that did have an effect on you going through that journey? How big an effect did your unhelpful thinking have on navigating everything?
The metaphobia side of it, I only put a name to it when I was reading more about the Thrive program. I didn't actually I used to make up excuses for what my phobia was. I would make up any reason for how I was feeling like I was. But I would say that pre-Thrive, I used to have the label of, oh, she's a worrier, or oh,
Mm.
she's anxious, or that's just her. And you've got to be very careful that you don't give yourself a label and then identify with being that warrior and that, oh, she's just not confident. So I think I almost had that label on my t-shirt of, that's just how she is. She's a warrior, she's anxious. And so when you hear that you've got a hearing, when I hear I've got a hearing issue, when I hear that I have a hearing condition or a lung disease, then, well, Anne's just that anxious, worried person. That's just how she is. And that's actually really not how I am or what I am. It's just something I was worried about that at the time, but it doesn't mean that's who I am.
Yeah, a thinking pattern that you would have been in. And as
Yes,
much as you could have been worrying about whether you're sick today, you could have also been worrying about what does the future hold. So it's a similar thinking that you're engaging in, isn't it? Just about different things in your life.
yes.
But
And
so,
I think the whole, when you look at what they say are the common traits of someone who has emetophobia, I would say that I was inclined to follow all the common traits. I was very much looking for that perfection, and then feeling that because I wasn't achieving perfection, and let's face it, who can achieve perfection? I made it such a high bar for me to. I put an added anxiety on by having to appear as perfection all the time because it's not
yeah,
possible. And
yeah,
then I was overthinking situations because I wanted to control the situation so that I knew I'd be able to handle it. And I think we all, well, maybe I'm right or wrong. I'm very much, or I was very much a people pleaser, where I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be good enough. I felt that I had to be perfect to be liked or good enough. And I felt that people, for example, when I was diagnosed with hearing aids to start with, people can, or I had it in my head because somebody once said to me, oh, when you wear a hearing aid, you're going to appear as old, or only old people wear a hearing aid, or things like that. And it just stuck in my head that when I then was told that I had my hearing aid, I grew my hair very long so that people wouldn't see it. I didn't tell people that I had it to be able to help myself. And it took me a long, long time to actually come round to the idea of having the operation for my bone anchored hearing aid, of which I will show you whenever you want to see it. I'll show you the operation because I'm very proud of it now. It is my power tool. So, all of these things just play a part in my poor thinking style and my lifestyle because of my poor thinking.
yeah, yeah. So then you went through the Thrive program to overcome your emetophobia, but obviously the thinking that you've learned and overcome and the beliefs that you've challenged will be affecting you in every bit of your life. So how did going through the Thrive program affect you on this journey in relation to the things that you were dealing with?
Well, the timing, I started the Thrive program for emetophobia to overcome the phobia. And because just the timing of it, in a way, was excellent in that I think within about a couple of weeks of starting the program, my ear, nose, throat consultant offered me my very first bone anchored operation. Now, when I say they offered me the operation, I had been offered it many times over probably a period of 5 years, and my thinking was very, very poor around it, and I refused to have it because my thinking style pre Thrive was, let's look up everything in the web about it, let's watch the videos, let's catastrophize my thinking. And I very much talked myself out of the whole operation because it was just going to be words like I was putting on, it's awful. And what
Well,
will people think? And
yeah.
oh, this operation is going to be XYZ. And I really talked myself out of it. But then when I started on the program, I think in a conversation I had with my coach at the time, I said, oh, I've been offered an operation. And she said, when, what are you going to do about it? And I said, you know what? I've decided to do it. So already within like a couple of weeks into the program, something had clicked with me in the program about how much my own thoughts generated my emotions, generated my behaviour in a very circle. And I was creating my own swirling circle going down rather than stop that poor thinking and let's do something that will help you. I was allowing my poor thinking to take control of my life rather than realizing that my helpful thinking would let me go ahead with my life. So I'll show you it now, shall I? So that is my anchored hearing aid, and I had very negative thoughts around it, and went through with the operation, and decided that it was going to be my power tool, and it would help me hear. And it changed my thinking around, oh, what would people think, and people would look at me, and I just decided very early on in the Thrive program that people cared less about me than I thought they would. They had so many other things going on themselves that they might look and say, oh, that lady's got an aid on her head, but they would then get back on with their own lives. They weren't really concerned about the thing in my head. If anything, they would say, well, okay, that means she will be able to listen to what I'm saying more and have a conversation. So that's great news. So early on, the program helped me with changing my thought around it.
Yeah.
Does that
And
answer your question? That was a bit of a warble
that's
there.
lovely, lovely answer, spot on answer, because you you early on recognized then that it was the way that you were thinking and the emotions that you were creating about the idea of having an operation that was making you feel scared and unable to go ahead. That when you recognized or took responsibility and started thinking, right, well, I'm I'm doing this scared, but actually this is going to help me have a better quality of life. So if I can change my thinking about it and change how I feel and get through, and then you've got that lovely perspective of it being your power tool rather than this thing that everybody's going to notice. That was you being the captain of your own ship, wasn't it? You figuring out a way of thinking about it that helped you to feel okay about it and happy to wear it and happy to display it. When you resolved your own issues about it, you care less about what other people think.
It's interesting you say the word you felt okay about it, because can I just say to you, I'm making it sound that it was easy for me to come to that decision and go through it. And I did the operation, and you can see that my hair covers the operation because a little bit of I don't want to necessarily have it on show. I'm not always saying that it's easy to deal with my hearing. I will have days when it is not so easy, and I can find situations difficult to deal with. But because I know that I'm creating that thought, I will quickly nip in the bud any poor thinking and realise that without that, I can't hear at all. Now, my husband will say, "Oh, for goodness sake, I can't sleep at night because of the birds," or I can't do my work because of the drill outside." There are benefits in actually I've got the option of unplugging my hearing aid and having a peaceful moment. So there is the benefit of that. But I can sleep at night because I can't. There are benefits of it. I don't hear anything at night, so nothing puts me off sleeping is a benefit. But not having hearing, if I get into the wrong headspace, can also be quite a challenge too.
Yeah, yeah. But that's where, yeah, we're not saying everything's going to be easy. You just have to manage your thinking and you're away. It is like, I think thriving is about taking that responsibility, isn't it? And recognizing when your thinking is starting to go a bit worse for whatever reason, whether there is an external situation or factor or force at play, or whether it's an old thinking spiral that you can get yourself in. Having that awareness to be able to go, right, hold on a sec, I want to take responsibility for my part in this, and being able to just nudge yourself back on track and get the perspective or stop that thinking trap. So do you feel like you've got those skills now? You can notice when you're starting to think in a bit of a negative or powerless way.
I, I've got to watch my thinking, and I'm also very aware of the words that I say to myself. So when I said to you there, it's not easy and it can be a challenge, I haven't said words like it's terrible
Yeah.
and I'll never be able to hear, or these sort of words, because these sort of words I was using before, and then it really wasn't helping me. What it was doing instead was putting me into more of a spiral of powerlessness. So it's things like learning the words you're using outwardly and innerly to inside, to make sure that you're helping yourself and you're not preventing yourself doing it, because I was inclined to attach labels to myself and have quite poor catastrophic words like, oh, that's going to be shocking, or like words like that, which really don't help. So I'm very wary of the words that I use with, it might be a little bit tricky, and following it with things like, but you know what, I'm gonna find a way to deal with this. And a challenge can be, in a way, a good thing. I quite like a challenge. So for example, I've been learning things like lip reading and BSL to help me as a challenge, because I quite like language and things like that. So I'm kind of turning it round to what would help me and make me become more powerful. And again, it's not easy. It's very difficult to lip read or BSL. So hats off to anyone who's doing that.
Yeah, but again, it's you knowing that there are, you can't change the fact that your hearing is deteriorating. You can't change the fact now that you've got your power tool, but there are things you can do now, since life's given you that opportunity. You can go down that route of learning different things or different skills or helping people in that kind of a way. So it's a
I would say absolutely, just with what you said there. But what I didn't realise until I didn't have my hearing is, and I suppose COVID happened and everybody learned this, and we all had to wear the masks.
yes.
Remember that way back when you had to wear masks? And I learned probably prior to the masks coming in the importance of body language. So when you're not able to hear, and I think there's a percentage, and I'm not going to state the percentage, but your body language comes in so much into your day to day living. You almost, if not more so than your verbal language as well, just body language and behaviour. So what I do now is I pick up on your facial expressions and your body language, possibly in a way more than what you're saying, because it gives me a bit of a gauge on whether you're happy or sad, or whether I've made you angry or scared, or what emotion is attached to the way you're sitting, the way you're talking, your hand movement, your facial, all of that. And COVID didn't help that, but I think COVID did help that in a way that people who don't have something like a hearing loss also recognised the
Mm,
importance of body language,
mm,
because you couldn't, when you put a mask over, see someone smile. You had no idea what somebody was doing.
mm, yeah, oh, totally. I can remember, bumping into people, obviously 2 meters apart, but finding it much harder to have a conversation because you've lost the sight of and the crispness almost of the words coming out, even though you can hear them. How much you
Yes.
rely on the other cues.
And it's quite a muffled sound as well. So you can imagine someone without hearing loss, or with hearing loss, struggling even more with the mask over their face. So all of these things showed the importance of other tools that we use to communicate. And probably after this conversation today, Lucy, you'll go out and realise how much you use your hands and your everything apart from your voice to actually communicate with people.
Yeah.
I play pickleball, and even those who can hear, you spend a lot of the time putting your fingers up, or putting the score, or telling who's playing, just without even realising you're doing it.
Yeah. 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 Amazing. Amazing. And so what else has changed in relation to sort of doing appointments? You said you're a bit of a people pleaser before, maybe that obedience to authority if you're going to see doctors or medical professionals. Like, what how else have you changed in that side of things, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, your ability to assert your needs?
I, I'm maybe a little bit of a funny one, and this is why you shouldn't label people with she's a worrier or she's this or that or anything else, because we're all part of it. We're all a work in progress, aren't we? And we are not labels. That's just one of a little piece of who you are. You're bigger than who you are. But I would say that I was okay at talking to consultants, and I do like to chat to people anyway. But I would say that the Thrive program made me more confident about sticking up for my needs. And then approaching people and being more confident in sticking up for my needs that way. But in terms of self esteem and confidence, what I felt more, I had my first operation for my anchored aid during the Thrive program, and I still had elements of going in and worried about certain aspects of it. But what I did notice the second time I went in, my thinking around it totally changed. So my appointment, I arrived at lunchtime, and it turned out that my appointment was not till I was the last on the list. And the person next to me was getting quite agitated about will I be seen, and almost behaving like I would have been before.
Mm.
And I was watching the other person who was very worried and very anxious and lacking in confidence about the whole thing. Whereas I just sat with my book and just thought, do you know what? I'm last in the list, but I'm on the list. And I trust that it'll happen. And I'm just going to sit back and wait to be called. And I was the one chatting in the operation, watching the screen, talking to the nurses and telling them it would be okay. So quite a different version of what I was before, where I was more anxious about the operation and sitting with this, oh, will I ever be seen, or will I be sent home tomorrow, or will it be cancelled? All of which is totally out with my control.
Mm.
Whereas my reaction to the operation is very much in, and I recognise the benefit of just read your book, sit calm, and if you don't get seen today, then you'll be called next week and it'll be fine.
Mm. And how would you articulate what you did or what you learned in the weeks between the operations that gave you such a different experience? You did them differently. Like, what was it in the Thrive program that you learned or understood or put into place?
I'm going to refer, I would say one of the things is not only with me, but I've noticed with other people that there's fact and there's fiction. And what I was inclined to do was make up a story almost as a way of controlling something, and I don't do it anymore. So I stick to the facts and I just deal with what is there, and I don't run off on a story where it may or may not happen. And that allows you to stay calm in the moment and just you go in for an operation, it's up to the experts to do the operation. They know what they're doing. Why would I go and look it up on the internet, which is what I was doing before, as if I'm doing the operation? It's not helpful. It's not helpful to see things that are out with your control. I'm not a dentist or a doctor or a surgeon, but I can control my reaction to when I go for that operation. And that's what stuck with me through the program. You can look after your reaction in a situation, but you can't control something that's not in your control anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So in the book, in the manual, in the program, that desiring control, if you're dealt with a situation that you don't feel very capable in, like an operation for most of us, it's not something that we have to practice, right, regularly. So they do tend to create, you do tend to create some anxiety about it. But realizing that that desire for control was you trying to get the answers, trying to figure stuff out, trying to get certainty, trying to make it feel easier. The running away in your head about what could happen and what if this happens again is that desiring control, isn't it? So to be able to recognize that, and the second time you went to the operation, use your actual control. What can I can take a book with me. I can have perspective that I'm on the list, even if I'm not first or second. At least you're it's the opposite, isn't it, of trying to tell yourself the story and trying to get control of things rather than just dealing with the facts, dealing with the reality.
And I also think part of the stick to the facts of this is the operation, surgeon will do it, and you'll be and that's how it is. Whereas what I was doing was I was trying to work out everything that would happen
Mm.
so that I would show up almost as a people pleaser. I would appear as the perfect patient, and I would behave properly, and I would show up well, and the version of me was one that I wanted to represent. Whereas really, if I can instead look at my thinking, change my thinking to something more helpful for me, you'll show up with that version of you anyway, because you'll be more calm in the way that you are listening to what the surgeon has to say, because you have allowed yourself to relax by not reading everything on the internet, for example, that takes so much time. Why spend like an hour on the internet looking up the detail of an operation or a procedure or an appointment when actually you would be far more benefit to yourself to go out for a walk, clear your head, do something you like doing, and leave that thing to the experts to do. Whereas you can control your thinking, go and do something you like, become calm, relaxed, have more clarity, and then be able to deal with whatever that person tells you lies ahead in that operation or procedure.
Yeah. Yeah. So some good tips here. I'm just thinking back over the conversation that we've had in the last 25 minutes. Perspective for you has been something that you've mentioned, the way that you've created a perspective for dealing with the bone anchored hearing aids as being your power tool, and the perspective that you have over it, and having a bit of a sense of humor that's so lovely about you, the way that you can go, well, I can switch the drill off. It's, peaceful at night time.
A lot of benefits there.
Well, it's a very thrivey thing to do, isn't it? To be able to apply a sense of humor to something that is, a serious thing, a life limiting thing, or a potentially life limiting thing. Not in a make fun of stuff way, but just in your attitude towards it. It shows that you have a healthier attitude towards it than panic and terror and this is the end of the world. So perspective is probably one of the things that you've talked about. And I think the other one is, about sticking to the facts, isn't it? It's very easy in a situation of unknowns, and we don't know what's going to happen or how bad things are going to be health wise. Whereas if you stick to the facts of what you know now or what you're dealing with today, rather than allowing our brains to go off with could be's and what ifs, that's a really good skill to be able to have as well.
I would add in, just when you're mentioning perspective there as well, I think I touched on it at the very beginning, where I said I have various chronic health conditions. We've spoken a lot about my hearing because it does impact quite a lot of like communication, relationships, and lots of other things. But not my chronic health condition of a lung disease and hearing are only tiny aspects of who I am. It doesn't actually change the fact that I am married, I've got children, I've got friends, I love doing sport and exercise, and it's almost like a tiny bit of me compared to the whole of who I am. And I think along the line, I did forget that I got so focused on the hearing aspect of it, and I made it this big snowball that I forgot that that snowball should melt. And I'm a bigger picture than just a tiny bit of not hearing. I'm not saying it's easy. I do have to remind myself of it,
Mm.
but it is worth reminding yourself that you're more than just not having hearing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, which is the same probably with the emetophobia, or when you've got anxiety or agoraphobia or one of those things. It's very easy to think that is me and view yourself through those lenses rather than viewing yourself through the lenses of that's a habit I'm in at the moment, and it's not something I'd like to continue doing. But equally, I've got, there's loads of other things about me. So seeing yourself as a more holistic person rather than just that thing that's currently going on. Yeah, nice.
It did take me a while, and again, I'm still working my way through it of asking people to help me. So I think that's probably a big bit. I was almost hiding and not telling people that I had hearing loss or like a lung condition, I would just mask it in a way. Whereas now, I will confidently, when appropriate, I'll just say, if I'm in a room, could I sit there because I'll hear better? Or if I was in a room with you, could I sit beside you? I've always got a post-it pad with me so that if I need to hear what somebody said and they can't articulate it to me because I can't hear them, if they write down like a change of subject, there are tips that you can have. But I'm quite confident now in being able to say, do you know what, I didn't hear that. Could you say it again? Or the big one that you've maybe heard people say when someone said something to me and they say back, it doesn't matter. I now will say, it does matter. It might not matter to you, but it actually does matter because they said it once. Can I decide if it matters or not? It maybe sounds a bit cheeky, but
No, but it's true, isn't it? It's yeah, it's almost the power, isn't it, and the equality of having a conversation. It's a bit one-sided if you if I make the decision that it doesn't matter because I can't be bothered to repeat myself.
can I tell you the Lucy? It's usually not worth hearing again.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't matter. No, but it's principle. That's almost you saying, look, I matter too. You know, we're equals. We're both human beings, and just because I didn't hear that one thing doesn't mean it's not worth repeating for me. I'm worth it repeating for, and then I'll decide.
It, it's more that I don't want to miss out on what other people have heard because if it turns out it's a very funny joke, I would like to laugh too.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So, what would be your top tips or words of wisdom or compassionate empathy that you would like to give if somebody's listening to this and they're currently going through this process or going through the journey of having to come to terms with something that they're going to have to deal with?
I would say it's up to you. It's all up to you and it's your life. And when you decide that you want to change, you really can change. And if you put the time and effort into doing it, and it will take time and effort going through the program and afterwards, but be yourself and embrace it. And I would also say, give yourself a break. So don't be hard on yourself. Be kind to yourself. You're with yourself every day, and treat yourself like you would treat your friend. And when you're having maybe a trickier day, then smile and just tell yourself that tomorrow's another day, and you can just try again tomorrow. It'll be fine. Give yourself a break. And last one, if you find the positive and start your day just being grateful for something, you're going to smile and your day will probably be better because of it.
Yeah. So, starting the
Sounds a
day
bit
well.
twee, but
No, I know what you mean. Starting the day well, even though I'm dealing with this big thing at the moment, or even though there's some unknowns about certain things, there are some stable factors in my life that I can choose to be grateful for, even whilst I'm dealing with these things.
yes.
Yeah, nice. Very good. Well, thank you for sharing your story so honestly and so, um, yeah, so raw. Really, really helpful and lovely to hear how you had such a good experience from that one operation to the second one and what you'd done and how you did that. Be inspiring
So
for other
that's okay.
people too.
I'll add on one tiny other thing. I've just come back from a long holiday in France, and whether I have got hearing loss or not, a smile does go a long way. It's universal, and that's non-verbal language. So whether you can hear or not, just smile. Makes people wonder what you're up to.
I like it. You've got a cheeky side to you, Anne. Lovely to catch up, Anne. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, thank you.